How's it going, guys? Andrew here with Justified DDC, and today's going to be kind of an interesting video. This is going to again be more of a talking video. Don't worry, we're going to have a bunch of knives out on the table and that kind of stuff. We're going to be going over things, but this is going to be kind of more of a philosophy video on. I think I'm probably going to end up titling this like, "Why do all of my fixed blades look the same?" Because that's kind of a question that I've got every once in a while, and this is kind of me going over my philosophy of how I test, evaluate, choose, and review my knives, specifically my fixed blades. Because how I go about, like how I choose a fixed blade, what draws me to different things, might be a little different than how other people approach it, and that's fine. Again, this is good. This is not me saying this is the right way to approach knife making, or being a user, or being a reviewer, or anything like that. This is just kind of explaining my thought process. So that when you guys see my reviews and you see my opinions and stuff like that, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. So before we get into anything, we have to thank the sponsor of the channel, as always, as I completely drop things off my desk, Auxiliary Manufacturing. Speaking of fixed blades, Auxiliary Manufacturing, Mike, has been an awesome sponsor of the channel. He makes custom USA-made fixed blades right here in the US of A, obviously, USA-made customs. But definitely go check him out. He's been an awesome sponsor of the channel. He sent stuff along for me to review and to check out. He's bought stuff for my channel to help me start growing and stuff like that. He's going to be at Blade Show here in a couple weeks. So if you're looking for a custom USA-made fixed blade, definitely go check out Mike over at Auxiliary Manufacturing. I do have a discount code with him. Justified10 will get you 10% off your order. I will leave links to all of his stuff down in the video description. And thank you, as always, to Mike for sponsoring the channel. And again, we have a video sponsor today, so let's go hear a few words from them. Recently, I discovered that several websites had my personal information, including my email address, listed on compromised password lists. Even worse, I found my email being listed for the purpose of accessing my paid streaming services for free. It's not the first time I've dealt with online security issues either. In the past, I've been the victim of credit card fraud that my bank didn't catch, and it costed me money and countless hours resetting passwords and trying to secure all my accounts. It's extremely frustrating and alarming to see how easily your data can be leaked online, and trying to get it taken down and secured can feel like an overwhelming and daunting task. But that's where the sponsor of today's video, Aura, comes in. Aura is like a digital shield, protecting you from the constant threats that are lurking online. It alerts you when your personal information is being sold on the dark web or by data brokers, and automatically removes your information from their websites. With Aura, you can have peace of mind knowing that you're being proactive in securing your online presence. And this is really important now, more than ever. Recently, AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records were released onto the dark web. They recommended using strong passwords, monitoring account activity, and considering credit freezes or fraud alerts. Aura does all of this for you in one convenient place so that you don't have to juggle multiple apps or worry about your data falling into the wrong hands. I value my privacy, and I know you guys do too. That's why I recommend giving Aura a try if it's something that you think would be valuable to you. You can go to aura.com/justifiededc to start your 2-week free trial. I've also linked it down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Take control of your online security today and protect yourself from the ever-growing threats in our digital world. All right, and we are back from the ad read. So let's get into this here. So what do I mean by, what's my criteria for how I choose fixed blades for myself to carry, what I choose to, take in for reviews, and then how I approach going about, what I think is a good design and what is good performance, that kind of stuff. So I'll get right out of the way, right at the beginning here. I'm going to get out of the way. Just because I don't like something for my personal carry doesn't mean I think it's bad. And here's what I mean by that. I'm going to give you an example of a knife that I think is very well done, extremely well designed, but I don't carry it very much. And that is the Knives by Nuge Wicket XL. This can go for both of the Wickets. They're incredibly well thought out. They're a great design. They're extremely comfortable in hand. The blade shape is super useful for utility. The sheaths that they come with work just fine for your standard belt carry. They're all fit and finished extremely well. He just does a really, really good job with these, and it shows. These are extremely popular right now. Everyone loves them, and that's awesome. But for me, past when I reviewed these, there are occasions where I'll use something like this. But on overall, something more like the Varger here is more my speed. This is the 3-inch Varger from Offensive Industries. And so what I am looking for when I want to EDC a fixed blade is I want something that can kind of do a little bit of everything. I want it to be, built in a way that it's tough enough to hold up to a little bit harder use, but I still want it to be thin and ground in such a way where it cuts well. To do stuff like, you need a pretty decently thin grind and a good edge to do stuff like cardboard cutting and stuff like that. So I want it to do a little bit of hard use. I want it to do a little bit of EDC use, and it also needs to fill a role of a defensive weapon as well, because I do carry fixed blades as a backup defensive tool. I carry a gun every day. I mostly carry a Glock 17, but for weapons retention, and there's certain situations where I don't want to introduce a gun into it, like a clinch or something like that, or you're on the ground, all that kind of stuff. This isn't my philosophy of fighting or anything like that, but I need it to do a little bit of everything. I need it to do a little bit of hard use, I need it to do a little bit of utility, and I need it to be able to hold up to defensive use. That's not everyone's criteria. A lot of people are only carrying a blade. We're going to focus here on fixed blades. So most people, I'd say, kind of use fixed blades for a one-use kind of knife. You have people like Erica's EDC and Steve Kalari, them on Instagram, that are really focusing on getting the most EDC slicing kind of capabilities out of a fixed blade. They're really focused in on really high-end steels with super high edge retention and super thin grinds and thin geometry that will just cut forever. They're absolute laser beams. That's awesome. I really enjoy their content. I think a lot of the knives that they're producing and reviewing and promoting are really cool. But knives like that aren't what I would choose to carry for EDC, because again, they're just geared towards kind of EDC utility cutting, which if that's what you want your knife to do, those are awesome options. Similarly, I'm not necessarily right into the niche of like really overbuilt, thick, like survival or bushcraft, or some people think tactical knives need to be super chunky and overbuilt. They don't. But I don't need I want my fixed blade to still cut. I don't need it to be 3/16 to a 1/4 inch thick blade stock. I don't always need it to just be a steel that's only priority is toughness. And so I don't necessarily fit into just that category either. Similarly, there's a lot of fixed blades that are designed just for self-defense use. Now, I have a lot of opinions about what makes a good self-defense knife, good defensive blade, good fighting knife. There's a lot of different styles out there I'm not going to really get into until I kind of talk about the kind of knives that I carry. But I don't like knives that you can't really use in, utility grips. So, certain things like very exaggerated hawkbills, or daggers with really thick flat grinds that don't cut very well, or Pikal knives. I really do like Pikal knives. I think they're some of the best defensive blades out there when you want a designated defensive blade, but they're not the best for utility, despite what the Ed Calderon fanboys will tell you of, oh, I carry my Elvia and it's my only utility knife. I'm like, okay, well, you're not using that to cut up stuff in the kitchen. They're not good for everything, despite what some people will tell you. There are better blade shapes and different things for that kind of thing. So I want something that can do everything. And so that's kind of why a lot of my fixed blades look the same. Again, we're using the Offensive Industries Varger as an example. I'll pull out some other ones here from VW Knives. Here is the, I'm already forgetting the name. The Erebus Short. This is the Erebus Short. Here's another one from Crossroad Customs. This is the Wesker. Get the sheath out of here for a second. So you're kind of seeing a theme on kind of the handle shape. Again, similarly, and obviously, why my design here. This is my design made by Auxiliary Manufacturing. Again, we're looking at very neutral handles. We're looking at the kind of general purpose blade shapes that can do a lot of different things. I'm trying to think of some other good examples. And, just going back in history, this Green River Works knife, this is kind of one of the knives that was very popular in the frontier era into the modern age. Again, just a very neutral handle, a blade shape that's good for a lot of different tasks. You know, this was our ancestors' knife, and they used it from everything from light bushcraft work to hunting, skinning kind of tasks, to defensive work. Just a lot of different things that a blade shape and a handle shape like this can do. And again, this is a little bit thinner than a lot of modern knives in terms of like the tactical realm or whatever. But you kind of see what I'm saying of like, a lot of people look at my knives and they say, you know, a lot of them are very similar. Like the blade shapes are very kind of neutral in terms of being able to do a lot of different things. The handles are all very simple. And you know, in my opinion, the more complicated your handle gets, the less useful it is. You know, the more grooves and choils and like contouring is great, but you know, weird cutouts and ergonomics, as we call it in the modern knife collecting world, really isn't ergonomic. You look at a lot of modern designs that have like multiple finger choils and cutouts and the handles dipping this way and that, and you hold it in one specific grip and it feels great, but then you try to move your hand into any other kind of grip and it doesn't really work. So that, in my mind, that's not very ergonomic. I want something that works in a lot of different grips. Again, using the Offensive Industries Varger, this is why I do in all of my reviews, how many different grips can you use this in? I can use this in hammer grip. I can use this in edge in hammer grip. I can use it in saber grip. I can use it in pinch grips. I can use it in reverse grip edge out, reverse grip edge in. Even, you know, hell, some push dagger grips and some more unconventional stuff like reverse chest lever and stuff like that. Neutral handles do a lot. And quite honestly, I think they're some of the most comfortable handles out there. You know, when your fingers aren't forced into one position, you know, you're not just going to be using you see a lot of people kind of hold knives. You're like, I'm trying to think of a good example here that I have. But you know, I don't have a lot of knives with well, let's use the Spyderco Para 3. For example, a lot of people would hold a knife like this in this grip and be like, wow, the ergos are so good. Okay, but what happens if I need to change my grips? What if I need to move my hand around? What if I, you know, need to use an unconventional grip to cut with? You know, a neutral handle accommodates all grips, whereas very specifically manufactured handles only work in a couple different things. So that's kind of my philosophy of, you know, I want my knives to do a lot of different things. Again, going back to the Varger here, this is kind of like my baseline. Like Offensive Industries and BW knives and people like that are kind of my baseline of what I compare a lot of fixed blades to, because I think they kind of understand that kind of that feeling of wanting your knife to do a lot of different things. You see people in the EDC world have these, in the bushcraft world, in the self-defense world, because it does all of those things very well. You have a very simple drop point, almost spear point kind of blade shape, where you have some flat, you have some belly, you have a little bit of belly on this that you can get down and cut on a table. You have some flat that's still good for your push cuts. Again, steel choice goes into all of this. Nitro V is one of my favorite steel choices, which this happens to have. It's 1/8 inch thick, which isn't too thin, too thick. It has a kind of a shorter flat grind, but with that 1/8 inch stock, it still comes down to a decent enough cutting edge. I just processed a bunch of cardboard with this earlier today, but I could also go out and beat on it a little bit and it would still hold up. So you kind of have to take into consideration when I'm evaluating a knife, I'm not thinking, you know, does this do one specific task really well? I'm thinking, you know, if I'm going to carry this, does it do all of the things that I want it to do well enough to get by? And there's nothing wrong with specialized tools, you know, stuff like, let's see if I can get my drawers open here while I'm filming. Stuff like this Buck 119. Is this good for super hard use? No, well, no. It's got a pretty soft steel on it with a hollow grind. It has a very exaggerated clip point. You know, this is designed as a hunting skinning knife. You got that really thin hollow grind edge. You have a clip point here for piercing through hide. Now, some people would argue, you know, you could use this in kind of a defensive role, which, you know, it might do okay in, but, you know, you're not going to go out and stab this through a car door like a cold steel. Not that you ever really need to do anything like that, but you get what my point is, that certain knives are designed for very specific things, and others are designed to do a variety of tasks. That's why, even though I pulled out some Wharncliffe blades here, I usually like blades that have a little bit of belly and a little bit of flat. I don't like things with really exaggerated curves because, again, if you have a hawkbill blade and you need to cut something on a flat surface, well, here's your surface and here's your blade. That the edge of the blade here isn't contacting what you're trying to cut. You end up having to like drag the tip, and then you have to hope that your tip is sharp enough to pull you sever through that. So there's a lot of different things that goes into it, but again, my main point being that when I review a knife, if I choose to review a knife that has a singular purpose, I review it for that singular purpose. I might just not choose to carry it, and I'll be very clear to say, this is something that would be good for this specific thing, but maybe not for these things. So if you're looking to do X, Y, and Z, and this only does A, B, and C, probably not the knife for you. Whereas I like reviewing stuff like this Varger here because it does so many different things well. If you're looking for an EDC knife that can cut decently well, this is going to do the job. If you're looking for a defensive blade, this can do all of your kind of defensive work. If you're looking for something a little bit harder use, you got that 1/8 inch thick Nitro V with a short flat grind, it's going to be able to hold up to some abuse. So that's kind of my line of thinking. Now, the other thing that must go into a fixed blade is a well-done sheath. Now, again, I was just talking about this here. This is the Knives by Nuge Wicked XL. I would consider this a well-done sheath because it's built for belt carry. The retention is super solid. You're not going to worry about losing that. There's no rattle. It pops in and out very very easily while still holding the blade well. The edge isn't rubbing on the Kydex. Like, this is a well-done sheath. But for me, something like a deep carry pocket sheath is going to work better because I like to carry in the pocket. I think it's a very versatile way to carry. You can get to it with both hands. It's very discreet. It's not taking up room on your belt line, especially for me, who most of the time is carrying a full-size gun and a spare magazine with an extension on it, appendix. I don't want something up here on my belt because it's going to push out farther. It's going to stick my shirt out. And again, if I'm going to have to move my shirt up to grab a knife, I don't want to risk exposing my gun, stuff like that. So for me, again, deep carry pocket sheaths are kind of what I look to. It's the standard that I hold other things to. Now, if you don't want to carry in the pocket and you want to carry scout carry on your belt, well, then maybe this isn't the sheath for you. But again, I'm talking about my philosophy of what I look for in knives. For me, I feel like something like the Varger right here is very much a baseline for what I look for. And it might not be the flashiest thing in the world. It may not be the most good looking in terms of exotic materials and flares and design cues and being really polished. But this is a tool and it works for a lot of different things, and it fulfills all the different tasks that I need to do on a day-to-day basis. Now, some factors that would change when I would carry something like this. To be completely honest, is a knife the best tool for self-defense? No, obviously, something like a gun is probably, but if we're talking about hand-to-hand combatives, personally, if I could carry stuff like batons, or maybe not like collapsible batons, but like a sap, something like that legally in my area, I'd probably never carry a defensive knife another day in my life, because those are just a better option. Not only can you do less lethal thing with them, but again, in terms of a lethal weapon, you're going to talk about things like switches versus timers. A knife is a timer. Especially a short blade that you're going to be able to EDC. Again, longer blades like this Sosby here, about 5 inches plus is what you want for to be able to penetrate to get vital organs. Hitting vitals is what stops things. So again, a switch is something that you get an instantaneous response. A timer is you start that response, but you might not get it till a couple seconds to a couple minutes later. A short blade, the reason I do, like Libre styles is because, again, with a short blade, you're not going to be able to get in and hit vitals or anything like that. So, you go for face, you go for arteries that are closer to the top of the skin. So, you go for your carotid, your brachial, your femoral arteries. You go for things like the face that cause a lot of bleeding down in the eyes. You go for eyes, if you can impair someone's vision. But ideally, you want something that is a switch. You want an immediate response. And you take a SAP, a heavy impact weapon, and you knock someone over the head with that, you're getting an immediate response. You're either going to knock them out or you might kill them. Similarly, if I hit someone in the arm with a SAP and I break their arm, that is an immediate response. Versus if I get a little 1-inch deep cut on someone's arm in an area that doesn't have an artery, okay, they might hurt a little bit. They're bleeding, but it's not enough blood to actually incapacitate them. And in the adrenaline of a situation like that, it's probably not going to be enough of a pain response for them to, have an immediate reaction. Whereas me breaking their arm will get an immediate reaction. Me hitting them in the head and knocking them out or killing them is an immediate reaction. None of this is pretty. And, I'm not trying to glorify violence or anything like that. But the reality of the situation is a knife is not the ideal, especially a small knife is not an ideal defensive weapon. So, if it was legal in my area to carry some more impact tools, I would do that, and then the idea of needing a defensive weapon in my EDC fixed blade would be null and void, and I might carry something like this a lot more. But for stuff, like I was talking about with people like Erica's EDC that are pushing the limits of knife steel and performance and stuff like that, I might be more apt to carry something like that if I didn't need those other aspects in my fixed blade. So again, this is what works for me. What works for me might not work for you. What might be best for me might not be best for you. But I just kind of wanted to get out my kind of philosophy of what I choose for myself and how that also will affect how I review things. Because, you look at my review and you don't know how I'm thinking about things. You might think, it's kind of a backwards way of thinking about it, or maybe that's not the ideal way of thinking about how to go about designing or carrying or reviewing. But I wanted to give you guys a background of what I do and how I think so that when you watch my reviews, you have a better idea of how I'm thinking. So this might have been a lot of just ranting about nothing to some of you, but I wanted to get it out there so that you can better understand where I'm coming from and how I do my videos. Let me know, guys, down below, when you carry fixed blades. Again, this is very much a fixed blade centered video. Folders are a whole different story. When you carry fixed blades, what are you carrying them for? Are you just replacing your pocket knife with a utility blade? And so how do you choose knives based on that? Are you only using it as like a hard use? Like, do you carry a folder and then you only carry another fixed blade as a hard use knife? Are you only carrying a fixed blade as a defensive weapon? Let me know down below how you guys think about things. And, poke some holes in my logic. If you see some holes in how I think about things, let me know. Just, do it respectfully. Just constructive criticism is what we're all about on this channel. So thank you again, guys, so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down in the comments. Thank you again for Aura for sponsoring this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.